The film begins in the Highlands of Scotland with a young boy named Jimmy, who's in a room with all the other children of the family, watching cartoons. Suddenly, we find out that his mother and aunt have left them to prepare for an escape because a dangerous infection has spread all over the world, turning those who contracted into monster zombies. Unfortunately, within seconds, Jimmy hears an unnatural noise. He approaches the door, thinking it's his father, but to his horror, infected people break in and kill the children. Jimmy hides behind the door and quickly runs to his mother, but at that moment, she's with an infected person who attacks her. She closes the door, sacrificing herself so that Jimmy can escape. As soon as Jimmy leaves the house, all the zombies in the street start chasing him, but he enters a church to find his father. He tells him what happened and waits for his father to get up so they can escape together. However, he is shocked to find that his father believes this is the end. For this reason, he takes off his necklace and gives it to Jimmy, hides him, and a few seconds later, zombies storm the place, bite Jimmy's father, and turn him into a zombie. From that moment on, Jimmy decides not to stop running. Afterward, we learn that the virus destroyed the United Kingdom, but they were able to prevent its spread in Europe. The British Prime Minister was isolated to contain the virus, and unfortunately, the survivors had no choice but to defend themselves. Years pass, one after another, until 28 years have gone by. At this point, we discover that a group of survivors has formed an isolated village on an island in the middle of the ocean, where they live away from the virus. We find that Jimmy has grown up and is married to a woman named Isla, and they have a 12-year-old son named Spike. At this time, Jimmy wakes Spike up to get him ready, because today he's taking him into the forest to train him to hunt zombies and protect himself from them. Spike gets up, puts on his clothes, and grabs his knife. Special arrows are made for him to kill zombies. Afterward, Spike goes down to Jimmy, who's preparing breakfast for him. Spike sits down to eat with him, and suddenly Isla wakes up, screaming and breaking everything around her. At this point, Jimmy goes to check on her, leaving Spike to finish his food, but Spike puts a piece of meat in a napkin and follows Jimmy to check on Isla. Here, we learn that Isla is suffering from a strange illness that makes her ramble and forget many things in her life, but it's temporary. It happens for a short time, and then she returns to normal. As soon as Spike goes to calm her down, she's surprised that he hasn't gone to school. At this moment, Jimmy tells her that he's taking Spike to the mainland and they'll go into the forest so that Spike can learn about the types of zombies and how to hunt them, and that this is the right time since he's turned 12. Isla goes crazy with fear for Spike and keeps shouting at Jimmy until she collapses and falls asleep from exhaustion. We see Spike putting the napkin with the meat next to her bed so she remembers to eat. When he goes downstairs, he finds his grandfather, Sam, has prepared his bow and arrows for him and is training him how to hold the bow as well. Afterward, Spike goes out with Jimmy, and we see all the villagers encouraging Spike and asking Jimmy to take care of him. Then Jenny, the village leader, appears and stands with Spike. She tells him the rules, which are that he must protect himself from the zombies until he returns, because no one will risk their lives to go look for him. They made these rules after losing many people. Afterward, Jenny asks the lookout if there are any zombies watching them, and when she finds out there aren't, she opens the gate for Jimmy and Spike. Here, Jimmy tells Spike that they won't be able to return until the sea calms down, but Spike doesn't care and is excited for the adventure. He and Jimmy walk like soldiers who have fought zombies with all their might until they suddenly see a zombie crawling on its stomach and eating from the ground. At this point, Jimmy tells Spike that this type of zombie is slow and easy to get rid of, but they move in groups, so there are probably others hidden behind the trees. Because of this, Jimmy tells Spike to aim the arrow at its neck and finish it off in one shot. Spike gets excited, grabs the bow and arrow, and is able to kill the zombie, but suddenly, 2 more zombies appear with a smaller zombie. At this point, Jimmy kills the first and second, but before he can finish off the small zombie, Spike stops him and lets it escape. Afterward, Jimmy congratulates Spike on his first kill, and they walk to explore the forest. At this moment, they see a large number of deer running in a strange way. Here, Jimmy tells Spike that this is surely because there are zombies nearby. At the same moment, they find an abandoned house, so they enter to search for resources that the village needs. At this point, Jimmy finds a frisbee toy and decides to take it for the children to play with. But to their shock, they hear a screaming sound coming from a room. Jimmy grabs his bow and arrow, hides Spike behind him, and they sneak to the room. They find a man hanging, with parts of him eaten, and Jimmy realizes that someone from the gangs tied him here as a form of punishment. Afterward, Jimmy tells Spike to finish him off before he wakes up and eats them. Unfortunately, before Spike can aim the arrow, the zombie wakes up and starts screaming and trying to free itself. At this point, Spike is terrified and can't kill it until the zombie suddenly frees itself. Here, Spike gets nervous, aims the arrow at it, and shoots it in the head, killing it. At this moment, Isla wakes up and remembers the army's wars with the zombies, so she gets up to look out the window and searches for Spike because she's worried about him. Then we return to Spike and Jimmy as they walk in the forest, and they suddenly see the corpse of an eaten deer with its head hanging on a tree. Jimmy is shocked at this moment and tells Spike that only the alpha species can do this, and the alpha species are much more vicious and stronger than any zombie. At this point, Jimmy takes Spike, and they leave the place immediately, but they suddenly see a group of alpha zombies standing far away. Jimmy is shocked at this moment and decides to take Spike and run at full speed. At this moment, the zombies get angry and chase them with extreme ferocity, but Jimmy suddenly stops and shoots one of them with an arrow, while Spike gets nervous as he aims at the second one. So the arrow hits a tree, but Jimmy kills it. Jimmy quickly takes Spike, and they run to hide in the abandoned house. They go up the stairs, and Jimmy kills everyone who approaches him until they find a secret room. They quickly enter and hide in it. When the zombies enter after them, they don't find anyone, so they leave. At the same time, the villagers are preparing a reception party for Spike because he has become a hunter. At this point, Jimmy talks about Spike's heroic role in killing the zombie, and since Spike has become one of the men of the village, Jimmy gives him a bottle of alcohol to drink and celebrate. Afterward, Jimmy goes to his lover, Rosie, and takes her, and they leave the place, but at that moment, Spike gets sick from drinking so much and goes outside to throw up everything he drank. He suddenly sees Jimmy and Rosie walking together, so he decides to follow them, and unfortunately, he discovers Jimmy's betrayal of Isla. He gets the shock of his life and decides to go and sit with Isla and take care of her. At this point, he finds Sam and starts talking to him, telling him about the fire he saw on the trip. Sam is surprised and tells him that this place belongs to a doctor named Kesslon, and they thought he was dead. Here, Spike is even more shocked at Jimmy, as he learns from Sam that he knew about Dr. Kesslon's existence and lied to him so that Isla wouldn't be treated. But Sam makes him understand that Jimmy lied to him because Kesslon is strange, but he doesn't want to explain more out of respect for Jimmy's wishes. Afterward, Sam leaves, and Spike sleeps next to Isla to take care of her. The next day, he wakes up in a panic to the sound of his mother screaming and in severe pain in her head. Suddenly, Jimmy returns home drunk from drinking so much, but as soon as Spike sees him, he leaves him and goes out of the room. As for Jimmy, he starts to sober up and gets up to make breakfast. At this time, Spike decides to confront him about Dr. Kesslon, whom he had hidden from him, and asks him to take Isla to Kesslon to treat her, but at that moment, Jimmy tells him that Kesslon is crazy and tells him that 13 years ago he was on a trip with his friends and saw Kesslon lining up an unbelievable number of corpses, some of them infected and some not, and burning them with extreme brutality. He suddenly turned around, saw them, and motioned for them to go to him, but Jimmy and his friends got scared and ran away. Since then, they decided to stay away from him completely. In the present time, Spike tells Jimmy that he's lying to him and doesn't want to treat Isla so that she dies and he can marry Rosie afterward. Jimmy gets angry at Spike's words and slaps him, but Isla hears the sound and calls to them, so Spike runs to hide with Isla, and when Jimmy goes after him, Spike pulls out a knife from his pocket and asks him to stay away from them, but Jimmy snatches the knife from his hand and is angry, but he is able to control his nerves, gives the knife back to Spike and leaves. Afterward, Spike decides to risk his life and take Isla to Kesslon to treat her. To be able to leave the village easily, he sets a house on fire in the village and makes the gatekeeper go and help the people, and in a flash, he and Isla escape from the village before anyone notices their absence. At this time, Isla doesn't know where they're going, and as soon as she realizes they've left the village, she gets terrified and tells him they must go back immediately, but Spike calms her down and tells her that he's taking her to a doctor to treat her, so Isla is reassured at that moment. They keep walking for a long distance until they find a safe place to hide until the morning. Here, Spike keeps joking with Isla and talking to her, and then he sits next to her to guard her while she's sleeping. But unfortunately, he falls asleep while sitting, and the shock is that a zombie approaches him and eats his shoelace. As soon as the zombie smells Spike's scent, it approaches him, but before it can eat him, someone wraps a cloth around its head. The next day, Spike wakes up in a panic and finds Isla sitting next to him and the corpse of a zombie next to them. He gets terrified and gets up to pack his things, so they can escape immediately. At this point, Isla remembers that she was the one who got up, wrapped the cloth around the zombie's head, and kept hitting it against the wall until she finished it off. In another place, we see a group of soldiers running quickly from the zombies and trying to shoot them with their guns. But unfortunately, the number of zombies is greater than them, and they keep killing them one after another, and only 3 of them survive. They run to hide in a building with a dungeon and point their machine guns at the door. As soon as the zombies enter, the soldiers fire bullets and finish them off. Afterward, they turn on the flashlights and enter the place to look for any hideout, but unfortunately, Samson, the leader of the zombies, attacks them, kills 2 of them, and their 3rd comrade takes the opportunity and quickly escapes from the building. Afterward, we see a group of zombies sitting in a place, and among them is a pregnant woman looking for a place to give birth. As for Spike and Isla, they keep walking in the middle of the plants until they reach a place her father always used to take her. Isla is lost in the beauty of the place and starts rambling and doesn't realize she's calling Spike her father. Suddenly, she starts bleeding from her nose, so Spike feels sad for Isla's condition, but he suddenly sees an old zombie approaching them, so he pulls out the bow and arrow with great calmness and finishes it off. However, he finds a large number of zombies coming after them, so Spike quickly takes Isla, and they go to hide in an old gas station, but as soon as they enter the place, they find it smells terribly of gasoline. So Isla wants to get out because she's suffocating, but Spike keeps pulling her so the zombies don't kill her. Suddenly, the zombies enter, and we discover that the soldier who survived is in the gas station. He immediately fires a shot at the zombies, so the place explodes, and fire catches on them. Afterward, Spike and Isla quickly get out, and here we learn that the soldier is named Eric. Eric wants to leave them and escape, but when he finds Spike refusing to leave his mother Isla, he decides to help him and carries her on his back the whole way. At this time, Eric keeps blaming his luck for not listening to his friend's advice and working as a delivery man instead of joining the Navy. While Eric is talking, Spike interrupts him when he sees a fire far away and tells Eric that they want to go there. At that moment, Eric decides to rest because he's tired and Isla is heavy for him. Here, Spike takes out an apple for Eric to eat and keeps watching him with astonishment when he finds Eric holding his phone because he's isolated and has never seen a phone before. At that moment, Eric shows him pictures of his girlfriend wearing makeup and fillers, so Spike thinks she's sick and looks strange, and he prays for her to get better. So Eric thinks he's making fun of her and snatches the phone from him, but after a few seconds, the phone turns off, and he's forced to throw it away. Afterward, Isla wakes up and tells Spike that she's cold, so Spike takes off his jacket and puts it on her. Here, Eric is surprised when he finds her calling her son Spike Dad, so Spike tells him that she's sick and that he wants to take her to a doctor to treat her. As for Isla, she feels that he is a selfish and stupid person who only thinks about himself, so Spike apologizes to Eric and tells Isla that Eric is the one who saved them. Afterward, they gather their things and get up to continue on their way. Suddenly, they hear a scream nearby, so Spike and Eric take off their backpacks and grab their weapons, while Isla runs in the direction of the sound. She finds it coming from an abandoned train and quickly enters the train. She finds the pregnant woman who is not a zombie, and she is sitting, screaming and unable to give birth. At that moment, Isla approaches her without fear and holds her hand to calm her down and let her deliver the baby. As soon as the baby's head appears, Isla pulls it out with her hands, quickly dries it in her shawl, and as Spike cut the umbilical cord with the knife. She then immerses the baby in water to wash the blood off, but suddenly, the baby's mother wakes up and returns to her monstrous state and attacks them. At the last moment, Eric shoots her with a bullet and points the weapon at Isla and Spike to kill the baby, but she refuses to kill it even if it's a zombie. So Eric is sure that she's really crazy and backs away to escape and leave them, but suddenly, a huge hand breaks the roof of the train and pulls him. After a few seconds, we discover that the one who pulled him is Samson, and he comes down to them with Eric's head in his hand after separating it from his body. At that moment, Isla and Spike get terrified of the sight, so they quickly run, and here we learn that the woman who died was Samson's wife, and the baby she gave birth to is his son, which is why he goes crazy and keeps chasing them with extreme ferocity, to the point that when Spike shoots him with an arrow, it has no effect, and he continues after them. Spike shoots him with more than one arrow, but it still has no effect. He jumps out of the train with Isla and the baby, and they try to escape from Samson, but the shock is that he comes down after them and is about to kill them. But suddenly, Dr. Kesslon appears and shoots Samson with a sedative injection, which immobilizes him. At this time, Isla and Spike are shocked by Kesslon's appearance, but he reassures them that he has coated his body with iodine because the virus is repelled by iodine. He then takes Eric's head from Samson's hand and takes them with him to his headquarters. The strange thing is that, contrary to what Jimmy said about Kesslon, he is friendly and kind and treats Spike very well. When they arrive, Spike asks him about the long sticks he has stuck in the ground. So Kesslon is happy that someone finally asked him because he felt that he was going to die alone. He tells Spike that these are graves for many people, both infected and uninfected, and he says a phrase in Latin that means remember death, and tells him to always remember that death is destiny and has no time, and it looks like he is preparing to finish them off. Afterward, he shows them a tower he built himself from the skulls of the victims, and he suddenly takes Eric's head and puts it in a furnace and leaves it in it for a while to be flayed, while Isla takes care of the baby and gives it water to drink. A little later, Kesslon takes out Eric's skull and cleans it and gives it to Spike to choose its place in the tower. Afterward, Kesslon asks Spike about the baby, so Spike tells him that she is healthy even though she was born to an infected female. So Kesslon tells him at that moment that they must go to a place with care to provide milk for the baby because water won't keep it alive for long. But the important thing is that Kesslon wants to know why they were looking for him. So Spike tells him that Isla is sick and that he is the only doctor who is still alive and asks him to treat her, but unfortunately, when Kesslon examines Isla, he discovers that she has cancer and has no cure. At that moment, Spike is shocked and can't believe Kesslon's words, and he keeps begging him to tell him about any place with a cure, and he will go get it no matter what difficulties he faces. But Kesslon reminds him of the Latin phrase he told him and asks him to accept the judgments of destiny. Spike cries at that moment and runs into his mother's arms, who keeps consoling him and telling him that she feels pain and that her life must end so that she can rest. By agreement with Kesslon, she has him sedate Spike so that she can say goodbye to him quietly and makes him understand that she will always remember him and that she loves him very much and appreciates everything he did for her. Right after that, she goes with Kesslon to have him finish her off. The next day, he gives Spike his mother's skull to choose its place on the tower. So Spike decides at that moment to put the skull on the top, and he actually puts it in his clothes and climbs until he reaches the top. Suddenly, Spike and Kesslon see the monstrous Samson running toward them. So Kesslon takes Spike, and they hide in a cellar underground and close themselves inside. But the shock is that Samson knows their location and tries to get to them but fails. Kesslon and Spike feel that he has left, but suddenly, Samson breaks the ground with his huge hands and pulls Kesslon with force. At this time, Spike quickly takes the sedative injection from Kesslon's pocket and puts it in Samson's hand to put him to sleep. Before Samson wakes up, Spike takes the baby and returns to the village, puts him at the door, and has a letter he wrote to his father, Jimmy. He leaves and tells him that Isla has died and that Kesslon is not crazy as he said, and that he is the most compassionate person he has ever seen in his life. And he also asks him to raise the child because he has decided that he will stay in the forest and face his destiny. At that moment, Jimmy is shocked by the words written in the letter and runs like a madman to look for him, but unfortunately, he can't because the sea is high. As for Spike, he is sitting in the forest grilling a fish and suddenly sees a zombie running toward him, so he grabs his bow and arrow and finishes it off. But the shock is that he finds a large number of zombies running toward him, so he gathers his things and quickly runs. At this moment, he finds the road blocked, and the second zombie is approaching him, so he quickly shoots an arrow into the zombie's head with high accuracy. At that moment, a strange person appears and admires Spike's shooting accuracy, and we discover that he has a team of killers who enjoy killing zombies. Immediately, this person, with Spike's approval to help him, orders his men to attack the zombies. And at that moment, Spike is impressed by their high skills and sees that they are killing the zombies with great ease. In the end, this person decides to include Spike in his team, and the surprise here is that this person is Jim, the child whose parents died at the hands of the zombies, and we learn that for the past 28 years, he has been gathering this team to eliminate all the zombies in the world and avenge his family. The first part of the film ends, and we'll see you in the next video.